for Thanksgiving. It was just kind of a quirk of the calendar where, we have our meetings on the third Thursday or the third Tuesday, but obviously Thanksgiving is the fourth Thursday, and it was just a weird quirk of the calendar. And obviously it's right after the convention and all of that sort of stuff. So it just is what it is. We'll see what we have pop up more than anything. But anyway, yes, so welcome to the first board meeting of the new board that has been elected. Just by way, for those of you that may have been popping on a little bit late or popping in and out, just to get you up to date on some things. Tyson Welsh, who was originally elected, did inform us yesterday that he is going to drop out. He's unable to fulfill his duties as a board member. And so where that is the case, and Randy, where you were a board member, we'll make a motion. We'll probably have to do it at the end now that we do have quorum, but we'll go ahead and get you seated in a bit. On that, just to get you filled and taken care of, you should probably do that right up top since we do have a quorum. Actually, we might as well make it official. So kind of unofficial, going outside of our normal agenda if the board will indulge me. So
I'll make the motion to nominate him.
Okay, do we have a second? Bill seconds, although he's on mute. All right, so all those in favor of appointing Randy Atkin to a 2-year term as a member of the board of directors, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, motion is unanimous. All right, Randy, welcome back to the board.
Great, thank you.
There you go. There you go.
We missed you, Randy.
Yeah, it was all of one board meeting.
It's been so long.
All right, and then yes, McKay and Kay, thank you both for joining us as well this evening. Okay, so first things first, let's go ahead and dive in. We have the approval of the October minutes. Did anybody have a chance to look those over? Have any questions? Anything that they want to change, discuss? Otherwise, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion is to approve the minutes, the October minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mike seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's pass the board. Any opposed? Thank you none. Thank you very much. Okay. That was easy enough. Let's go ahead and dive into just my update for you guys. For you all, I should say. So over the past month, I worked 26.5 hours. It was very heavy as far as the long range transportation stuff. Very much heavy on just the convention and post convention, as well as that teen author boot camp. If you recall, I brought the I was doing that. I didn't put it on the books because they paid me, but hourly, just to let you know. I did do some stuff up there. It's actually pretty well attended. Probably gave a lecture to a total of 75, 80 students. And the nice thing about that was actually I got a lot of stuff, well, not a lot, but a fair amount of stuff that I'd actually be able to kind of port over as far as our CAT program is concerned. So there was some usable stuff that we got out of that as well. Also had the opportunity to meet with both Rone and Anne. Boy, there's a lot of tongue twisters tonight. Rone and Anne from the new board. Bill, I still need to sit down with you. I know that you've had a very busy couple of weeks, but
yeah, thank you.
We'll sit down. Yes, we will have an opportunity to talk and get you caught up as well. Also, yes, finalized the 2050 long range transportation plan, got that sent over to UTA, also converted that into a series of blog posts. I'll do another round after Thanksgiving of pushing that out, as well as just general updating and media stuff. I really got bogged down in that sort of stuff, so I kind of got focused on that. Wasn't able to do a lot of other advertising on that. McKay, speak to the fact that we really starting to be able to build out the Cache Valley chapter a little bit more. I think we're up to 4 or 5 at this point. We'll get to that in a minute. And then put together the November newsletter. One of the other things that I've put together as far as fundraising was concerned was I've updated our donor information and email addresses. One of the things that I really kind of want to hit on, just as a side note, I'm aware, of course, that we still need to focus on grants and those sorts of things, but just following up and making sure that those that have donated in the past we're staying on top of, and just saying, hey, you gave us an annual membership back in April, it's come due. Don't forget to renew your membership for those that do an annual donation. We don't want those slipping by the wayside. Same thing with a monthly. If someone cancels for some reason, or if they change, we want to recognize that. So basically, I'm just keeping track of that a little bit better, which is why, Chris, I was asking about that info at UTRU. It was there, and now it's gone, so I don't quite know what's happening there. And then finally, as far as upcoming activities, and we'll talk about this a little bit more as part of the agenda, but kind of the 7-day plan and coming up with a game plan. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I've started putting that together. I've got a draft that I'd like to discuss. We'll get to that in a minute. As far as numbers are concerned, first of all, Twitter followers, while it still exists, we're up to 878. That was plus 13. TikTok remains 7 to 18. YouTube same at 8. New general membership is up 10 to 235. One of the things that I'm going to start tracking now is chapter growth specifically. So UTRU students has 13. South Salt Lake Sugar House has 10. Cache Valley currently has 5 registered. Donors for 23, 24. Now this, mind you, this is one of the things that I need to check. So this is like people who hit subscribe as they have come in from the start of October or post convention, excuse me. So there's still some that will be cycling through. So we haven't captured everything yet. So I don't want you to freak out when I say that we only have 7 donors. That's not inherently the case. It's just that at the time I captured this, there was 7 at the time. To wrap out 2022, 2023, I showed that we had a total of 21 dues paying members. That was up from 14 in 2021, 2022. Total donations through PayPal were $3,073.37. That was from October to October, from convention to convention. So yeah, just as a wrap up on that. So are there any questions about any of those items? Okay.
That's actually pretty good because my donations don't come through PayPal.
Right. No, I was purposely like, these are just the things that came in through PayPal. Either direct donations or like the people that were buying stickers or those sorts of things, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so we can always make it better, and I know we've been talking about it. In talking with some of the new board members, I think that there's a real opportunity to really start fundraising a little bit more. So that it's not just me doing that, and so I'm kind of excited at the opportunities that come with that as well. Some media outreach as well. Yeah, so that will be a focus kind of going around. Okay. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I'm just going to chug right along. Let's go into our next item. Now we kind of get into the meat of this. In the intro of the new board members. We only have one on the line right now, so let's go ahead and Bill, if you want to hop on really quick and just kind of introduce yourself to the board a little bit more. And thank you, especially tonight. I know it's probably a pretty stressful evening for you.
Yeah, I haven't slept.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. I haven't slept the last 2 nights because as soon as I turn the light out and try to put my head down, my mind starts racing and trying to calculate voter turnout and all that stuff. So for those that don't know, if anyone doesn't, I'm running for Park City Council. Election day is today. Ballots have been out since November 1st. So I've been dedicating a lot of time on a daily basis to that over the last 3-4 months. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it works out. Even if it doesn't, I'm still going to make waves. I've been making waves on, us stepping outside of the box and really thinking big on transportation here in the Wasatch Back. We don't have the urban density that you have down in the valley, but we do have a density of visitation with 4 million visitors plus a year into Park City. So I feel like there's an opportunity, especially, as the likelihood that we get the 2034 Olympics comes, for us to take advantage of that. And I wanted to advocate on all fronts on transportation, and that's what led me to this organization. I got to know Mike Christensen over the past 6-7 months, and I've known Christian Lenhart and Cameron Blakely, the Rio Grande Plan guys, for almost 2 years now. So I'm really excited. As soon as this election stuff is over, I'm going to jump in with both feet and hopefully help you guys move the needle.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. Again, best of luck to you. We'll see how it goes. Do you have any feel for it? Have you been knocking on doors and all that good stuff and harassing people?
I've been knocking on doors. It's pretty amazing. I mean, one of the things. Quick little rehash. My wife and I and our daughter Bella, we moved to Park City, moved to Utah back in June of 2020. We had started looking before COVID started, so I'm proud to say I'm really not a COVID refugee. We had started our plan back in 2018. It just took us a while to execute. And one of the reasons we moved here is because we wanted to be somewhere where it was just friendlier. It was just nicer. I lived in Manhattan for 27 years, and there are friendly people and nice people in Manhattan, but it's a different world.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And I have to tell you, in the last, 3 months, since August, I've been out knocking on doors, and it's just amazing how many people actually invite you into their house to sit down and talk about issues in the community. My wife came out with me on Sunday, a woman who had just had a knee replacement, maybe about a week prior. Her husband opened the door. We started talking. She's like, invite them in, have them come sit down. And they spent 20 minutes talking to us about the issues here in Park City and from their perspective. So it's been really amazing. There is an appetite here in Park City to do something on transportation. There is a lot of, I've had a very positive reception when I talk to people about imagining a future up here in Park City where we have like 50% or more less cars coming in on a daily basis. And that really captures people's imagination. So whether I get elected or not, I'm going to continue pushing on that. I used, public transportation pretty much every day of my life. I lived in Manhattan for 27 years. It was fantastic. Obviously, we've got density of service there that really, really works. If we could get front runner frequency and we can get tracks running on Sunday down in Salt Lake, I'm sure, the Utah population will continue to grow in terms of transit usage. So I'm excited to hopefully play a role in that and help that along.
Yeah, but it's about getting people out of their cars.
Yeah.
I mean, and Mike's been without a car a lot longer than I have, but it's just amazing. Once you give it up, it's like you realize, what the hell? What was I doing? What was I doing with a car for so many freaking years? And it's like, I mean, when I tell people, they're like, well, what if you need a car? And I'm going, well, if I need a car, I can actually go rent a car. Like if I want to go camping, I can actually go rent a car and then go camping if I want to go camping. Or, well, what if, if I want to go to Tooele to see my daughter on a Sunday, I can hire an Uber to do that. I'd much rather take a train or a bus would be the preferable way to go. But right now there isn't a train or a bus out to Tooele. And we've talked about this before. You can't get to Tooele on a regular basis in the morning or afternoon. I mean, you can leave Tooele at 7 in the morning and then get back at 3 in the afternoon, which nobody has an actual schedule like that anywhere in Tooele. I mean, I don't know anybody that has a schedule like that. An 18-hour schedule, hourly bus that would go from Tooele to Salt Lake, from Logan to Ogden, from Park City to Salt Lake City, 18 hours a day, every hour. I mean, even every hour would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, one of the things that I've learned in kind of being an advocate up here for, real public transportation is the one battle that I'm not looking to fight is going out and saying right off the bat, we're going to get everybody out of their cars because I don't know that I have enough ammunition for that battle. So I think about it more of like a Trojan horse sort of play. So my focus and the data supports this. 80% of the trip generation into Park City Mountain, Old Town, and Snow Park at Deer Valley is visitor traffic coming from outside of the 84060 zip code. And then somewhere between 15 and 17% of the total is workforce, also from outside of 84060. So that's like 95, 97% of the pie right there. That's what I'm shooting for. I talk about, converting those people by giving them a more convenient, faster, more reliable, and at the same time environmentally friendly way to get here. And then, my vision is if we can get what we need to get in terms of transportation infrastructure, the locals will eventually use it as well because it'll be a better, more convenient way. So I got to get the local population on board to say yes. So I'm not talking about taking away their cars yet, but 2034, if the Olympics are here again, I have to imagine Park City is going to be car free again, like it was in 2002. And hopefully we have the infrastructure in place to say, you know what, that worked so well for the last month. Let's just keep it rolling. And that's my plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always like to say we don't take it away, we make it so you don't need it.
Correct.
That's the way you phrase it, right?
Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you, Bill. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Just by way of kind of secondhand introductions, yes, I did have the chance to speak with both Anne and Rone as well. So spoke with Anne just this past week to kind of catch you up on her and her motivations. She really is just kind of a citizen down in Sugar House. She really kind of decided to run out of a lot of frustration, to be honest. She was running because she heard about UTRU and how we are advocates for transit, the transit rider, and her specific frustration kind of dealt with all of the construction that has been going on in the Sugar House area and just how difficult it is to even be able to find where the bus goes at those times. And so she wants to really make sure that she can make sure that there's a voice and an advocacy just to make sure that, hey, where is the bus going? Is because she had a frustration with UTA, basically going off of the same maps that are just on the website. And if those are wrong, then what's the point, right? So she's very much approaching it from, it feels like, I don't want to speak for her specifically, but it certainly feels like she is approaching it from on the ground. Let's make sure that we are fighting for people that just want to make sure that they can get from point A to point B and not have to walk miles and miles just to find a bus stop. Rone, Chris knows Rone well, and Rone made light of that during our discussions. Rone is a journalist by trade. And an investigative reporter. And one of the things that kind of sparked his interest in transit in the first place was these quote unquote ghost buses that went back and forth. But that actually kind of sparked a deeper conversation and thought in his brain about kind of how the transit system works overall for him and how it does and doesn't work for people in the Salt Lake Valley. And so his kind of motivation to run for the board, again, not speaking for him, but just in the conversations I had with him, really kind of sprung out of this idea of making sure that the resources that are going towards UTA are being used effectively, that their budgets are being used properly. Privately, he's been sending emails probably, I know he's been sending a few to the board, but, just asking general questions about like, what's the size of the fleet? What's the age of the fleet? How much money are they being spent? He's very much approaching it from kind of an investigative standpoint of, is UTA being a good steward of the public trust, of the public funds? And so he is taking, I get the impression that he is kind of taking that approach towards UTA and transit, making sure that UTA is keeping its nose clean and doing what it's wanting to do, and standing up and saying, hey, why don't we do more with what you're doing? Is this really the best use of our funds? In addition, he does bring a lot of contacts as far as the media are concerned, and he's more than happy to kind of latch on with that as well. Which will be great. We don't have a ton of contacts necessarily straightforward, so he's more than willing to step up on that. And he is retired, so he's pretty much willing, he's told me, to kind of do whatever kind of needs to be done. So I'm sure I will be leaning on him as well, as far as that is concerned. So yeah, those were Ann and Rone, as far as board members. Couldn't join us tonight. Ann has family coming in for Thanksgiving. Rone was saying he was going to hop on, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. But yeah, there we go. Cool. All right. Well, then I'm going to move on to the next item, the waiving of board dues for Ann Hopkins. Mike, you have a question?
I just wanted to say that I'm going to have to jump to another meeting
Yes.
at 6:30. So just wanted everyone to know why I will disappear.
Yes, and that is why I did want to make sure that we got on this before you go, because I didn't want to lose my quorum before this happens. So in our bylaws, there's a requirement, board members have to pay $100 due a year. That's just part of our board of directors, unless there is a specific request by a particular board member due to financial hardship not to be able to pay that. It has to be a motion by the board in order to get that waived. Ann has requested that. Just
I'll make
because
the
of her
motion.
financial situation. Okay, Chris makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Easy peasy. All right. That was easy enough. All right. So next thing I want to discuss, let me pull up my screen. So this is kind of what I've been putting together, talking about the 7-day challenge. I don't have a great name for this because it's kind of bigger than the 7-day challenge at this point. There's a couple of different things going on that I want to discuss, but by way of just catching people up and letting people know where we are. So the 7-day challenge, again, is this idea that we want to encourage policymakers to use transit in the communities that they serve, right? Where they make those decision makers. Briefly, we did the 7-day challenge back in 2015. It was largely just an offhanded comment during a press conference that was thrown together at the time. Now we want to put a little bit more structure around it. And so that's kind of what I've put together here as far as just kind of a basic document, basic idea. I'm calling it the 7-day challenge planning document, even though there's a little bit more to it than that. This isn't fully fleshed out. I'm fully open to ideas, comments, changes, suggestions, but this is kind of what I've hashed out. So basically, 7-day challenge is the working name for a 3-pronged call to action designed to engage current members, increase awareness of UTRU to the general public, grow membership in chapters, and directly advocate for transit among policymakers. So the 3 prongs are the vision, our call to action, and then the challenge. So the vision is transit imagined, right? So UTA recently released its long range transit plan. In our mind, it falls short, right? We have transit imagined, more trains everywhere all the time. We want to make sure that you can get on a train, get on a bus, get to where you need to go. And so I want to use the 7-day challenge thing, whatever the working title is, to really start to roll out Transit Imagine, to really start to get this idea in front of people as an idea, as a concept, as a thing to get people excited about transit. And then people say, wow, that's great. How are you going to pay for it? Well, that's the call to action. And the call to action, at least this is what I was hashing out. This is where I imagine we probably have the most discussion, but it's the gathering of signatures to increase taxes with funds specifically going to transit. Now, this again is just a petition gathering process. This is not the formal legal process. That is a whole rigmarole. That is a whole thing to get something on the ballot. That is not what we are doing here. We are basically going to throw some things up on our website. We're going to make it official. Like, you got to sign your name. You got to put your address. We need to know where you are, who you are. Like, we will throw out things that look fake, can't be verified, that sort of stuff. But by way of background, what I put together was back in 2015, we had Proposition 1, for those of you that recall, It's placed on the ballot in 17 counties, basically asking, hey, Utah, would you increase a 0.25% increase in sales and use tax to help fund transportation? It passed in 9 counties, and it went forward. So the call to action, what I'm picturing, again, I'm open to ideas, is basically, here's my name, here's my address, and check boxes. Would you sign your name to see a 0.25% increase to the sales and use tax? There's a little bit of information here as far as what you would actually expect with that. Would you check that box? Would you check a box to support a 2% increase to the oil and gas severance tax? That would be one that's paid by oil and gas companies. It generated 1.5 million last year. Would you support a 1% increase to the motor vehicle registration fees? You'd expect roughly $2 more for registration fees. And then a 1% increase to other motor vehicle taxes and fees, blah, 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 down the line. It'd generate 31.6 million based off of last year's numbers, just by way of example. Taken together, all 4 increases would have increased transit funding by 45.3 million, right? Still far from what Transit Imagines numbers would be, but hey, it's mostly this idea of we're getting people to say, yes, I'm actively supporting transit. I'm willing to get behind it. This is what I am pushing for. I thought about the gas tax. That's kind of a third rail right now in Utah politics. And so I don't want to necessarily push people away. Sales tax, people are used to. Oil and gas severance tax, we might run into resistance on that one. So that might be one we want to drop if people would be like, well, we already paid more in gas tax. It's a different thing. This is the cost of getting gas out of the ground, getting oil out of the ground that companies are supposed to pay when they get it out of the ground. And then vehicle registration, pretty straightforward. So that's the second part of that, is this petition gathering process. Put stuff on our website, reaching out to other like-minded orgs, getting the advertising out there to collect this information. And then the third part is, once we finish this up, once we've been able to say, hey, Bill up in Park City, you're a council member, and here's how many people in Park City signed this petition. Now we are going to challenge you to use your system for 7 days, right? As a policymaker, we are challenging you to use your system for 7 days. And we're not doing this to be adversarial, but we want your honest opinion after 7 days. What worked? What didn't work? What do you honestly think needs to change? And then how would you what are your feelings about it, knowing that there are people in your community that need transit, right? That don't have an option. And how would you react knowing that there are people that want transit, but maybe it's not good enough? And we want to be, at least in my mind, I want this to be a positive experience. I don't want it to be like, see, it's not working, fix it, right? I don't see that working here. But that would be the third part of that. And we follow up with them and say, okay, please tell us your experiences. Again, running that through the media, getting more media getting more of that earned media through that. Ultimately, some of the goals, I've just come up with some numbers for gathering petitions, 0.01 of the total catchment areas for the state's 6 transit districts. Again, we are a statewide organization. If you crunch the numbers, that's 3,000 signatures, roughly. I would love to have 30 policymakers from across the state participate in the challenge. I would love to convert half of those petition signers into actual members. I'd love to convert 10% of those to create or join chapters, and 5% of those to turn into dues-paying members. Just as far as project execution, obviously this is still needing to be hashed out, but here's kind of a timeline that I've kind of hashed out a little bit. This is going to be kind of a 6-month process. It's not quite as immediate as I think some of us want it to be, but I think if we want to do it right, I've timed it around a few different events. So first of all of the pre-work is taking place before the legislative session. The petition gathering process itself is taking place during the legislative session, and that is by design, with a month after the legislative session. That's because I wanted to give 3 months of signature gathering to take place. That also gives the policymakers that we tap a little bit of an opportunity to breathe. If we do have some state lawmakers that want to participate, I don't want it to be the day after the legislative session ends. I want to give them a chance to breathe, get back into their normal lives. And in the meantime, we're also following up with policymakers and organizations, just reminding them of the challenge, trying to build support, trying to get them up and going, either to get people to sign the petitions or say, yes, I'm a policymaker. Yes, I will be participating in this challenge. We'll also be working with chapters, with the media to remind them of what we're doing as well. And then finally, we'll launch the 7-day challenge May 1st, is kind of what I'm thinking. May, I feel, is a good time. The weather's decent. I think we're more likely to get policymakers who maybe are transit averse if the weather is decent, as opposed to, hey, it's February, get on a bus and wait. Yes, I know we've all done it, but let's try to be a little bit friendly here. Then following that, we'll start gathering the stories, start releasing the stories, distribute some press releases, or create press releases and distribute them out. So like I said, this is roughly a 6-month process of how I've put it out. Right now, I put myself for just about everything, except for Chris. I do have you for Transit Imagine stuff, putting that together. And obviously, we can put more people together for responsibilities as well. But this is my thought. This is kind of how I've hashed this out, at least kind of back in the napkin. As far as kind of creating this, rolling this out, and actually turning this into a viable product, viable project that we can be proud of. So that's kind of my presentation just on this. Obviously, we kind of need to get going on this, and then that's my intention. But are there thoughts, ideas, comments? What do you guys think? What do y'all think?
We'll go back up, Curtis. First of all, this is a lot of great work. Really appreciate all the work that you've done here. Can you go back up to the finance stuff and just kind of go back over that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So before you do that, the input I would give on this is I would not put numbers to this. What I would do is I would give them an option. I would say, would you increase sales tax? Would you increase oil and gas severance? Would you increase motor vehicle registration fees? Would you increase other taxes? Would you increase property taxes? I would give them a choice. And I mean, you can walk through this, but I think, and this is me speaking as an accountant and as someone who ran for state treasurer and county auditor, this really gets into the weeds, and this is really policy oriented stuff. And while I appreciate it, I don't know that the average writer is going to appreciate it. But you can delve into it further for John if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly break it out. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kay.
I think still mentioning it would only affect you about this much would still be good to include. I know that a lot of households can be just inherently tax averse. So saying, this would cost you $10 a year wouldn't be too big of a deal. I think that would still be useful to include though.
Yeah, I could do something like that. Yeah, so maybe, and again, we can tinker with it a little bit. We can go back and forth. And maybe, so one of the other things I was thinking, obviously we're going to create a web page and a landing page. We can always fill in more information, right? We can always add more information if people really want to know. But yeah, if we just do increase the sales and use tax, increase the oil and gas severance tax, and there's oh, well, by how much, or what is this tax? Well, okay, well, we can explain that, and oh, well, if we did it by this, it would equal this. We can dive deeper, I guess is what I'm saying, if that makes sense. But if people just want to click the button, let's let them click the button. Let's make it as easy as we can. But yes, I can do that as well. And I obviously picked these for obvious reasons, sale and use tax. I mean, that's just kind of the go-to. I do like the idea of property tax. I can throw that on there.
And why the 35 billion figure? Isn't that less than 10% of the UTA's budget? And I know that sales tax, when you have an economic downturn, is not exactly the best, most resilient funding source in those cases. I think Romney, when he was governor of Massachusetts, changed the MBTA's funding to based on sales tax, and that blew a big hole in the budget during the 2008 and 2009 crisis, resulting in all sorts of cuts and long-term financing issues in terms of deferred maintenance. So Yeah, I guess this is like Chris said, this is like kind of down in the weeds, right?
Sure.
And the numbers that we would need to have a more functional and resilient transit system are kind of an order of magnitude higher than this. So it feels as though it would be good to get people's sense of their support for some of these things. Although it feels as though it's kind of just like dipping our toes in the water. So I don't feel too strong. I don't feel too strongly about including it, is what I'm trying to say.
Which is one of the reasons why several years ago, I started talking about property tax. When you start talking about the benefits of a transit system, and particularly what sales tax does, well, when you have a county that is where do people buy things? Well, people buy things at retail centers. Well, now that people are buying things online, where are people, where are most people who buy things online? Where do they live? Are they getting the transit services that in proportion to what they're buying? Well, right now, I don't think that's necessarily the case, right? And so the idea is that, well, so how do you provide equity to users? Well, the primary way that you do that is you do that through property tax. But again, the amount of revenue that property tax would generate would also be dependent on the economy as well. But in my view, one thing that we could push as something that the Utah legislature would go goo goo gaga over is that they could be they could do something different that is not being done in any other jurisdiction in the United States, and that is to fund something that is not based on sales tax, that is not based on something that, like John just brought up, it is based on economic ups and downs, and based on something that is when the economy dips, property is less volatile than sales are. So
it's less
anyway,
volatile both ways.
Right, exactly.
Okay, you have your hand up. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just had a comment from CVTD's perspective. You say that we raised sale tax in 2015, but we also raised it in 2020. And that was done without voter approval. And there's more in Cache Valley. Only 2 of the 4 quarters approved by the state legislature have been approved. So that's one potential option. I'm not sure if Salt Lake Valley's done all those quarters or not. And I know that the new Utah State Transportation Transit Investment Fund is also a good option. We could maybe just vote for the legislature to increase that. Those are just some ideas without adding new taxes. Although new taxes would be great too.
Bill, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll comment from the perspective here in Park City, because we actually do have, I think, maybe the highest sales tax levy in the state. I think we're at like 9.85%. So yeah, I mean, we definitely need to broaden the income streams that are flowing into transportation investment. That's not that's not roads, highways, et cetera, car based, right? I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, my experience has been that property taxes is probably the first or the most likely item that's going to wake up the opposition. These sales and use taxes are pretty, I think easier to increase or introduce than something that's tethered to property tax. And I just, up here, both in Wasatch County and Summit County, they haven't raised the tax rates, but people's property tax bills have gone up dramatically in the last 3-4 years. My property tax bill from 2020 to 2023 is up 100%. I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for me, but the climate here on property tax is starting to get a little bit raw. So if we're gonna advocate, I'd be 110% behind talking about sales and use taxes, and make sure that we specifically say that whenever we mention the word tax. And that's kind of that would be my 2 cents on that issue. Yeah.
So what about this? This is, as we're having this discussion, this is what is just kind of popping into my head. Maybe even just talking about taxes is too much. Because, we are not the policymakers. Even just saying divert a portion of UDOT's budget specifically to transit, right?
Yep.
Traditionally, traditionally the state of Utah does not inherently fund transit. It's a pass through from the feds, or it's either for a very specific project like rail, double tracking rail, for example. But it's never, it's very rarely,
Or a gondola.
or a gondola, yes. But it's very rarely like just for ongoing services, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's just something as simple as that. Is just I'd have to pull up
let me go back to what I was saying about this whole process. The whole process has to be it has to include everything, right? So Bill, I mean, you're right. Yeah, we start talking about property tax, but you're gonna get the socialist liberal, Democrat who's going to go, yeah, right on. We want the property tax. And so he's going to go on that list and he's going to say property tax, yes. Whereas you're going to go, no, I don't want the property tax. I don't want that. I want the sales tax, right? And then, so what we want is we want a list, and we want the list of, we want people to be able to choose what they want on that list. And then, and so what we're doing is we're getting all of the people that want whatever they want on that list. And then once they know they want the transit and this is how they're going to pay for it, then that's when we go to the policymakers, and then the policymakers decide how they're going to do it. But the idea is that you get the people who, okay, they want the bus, they want the train, this is how they want to pay for it, and then they move forward with it. So our ideas here are not like, oh, this is going to be sales tax or nothing, or it's going to be property tax or nothing, or we're gonna raise the taxes or nothing. All this is just a what if model.
So that makes sense. I mean, I think maybe then we need to be careful to really describe it as more of a survey type input than advocacy for a specific tax.
Right. Yeah. It's like how would I mean, what's the best way? Like if you're ordering, I don't know, like you're ordering a cheeseburger. What do you want on your cheeseburger? Right? Do you want double? Yep. Do you want double cheese? Do you want pepper jack?
Right.
Do you want Swiss?
So, and Ron, I'll get to you in just 1 second because I do see your hand raised. There's a portion of me that also just says it's not our problem to figure out. We are just the advocacy organization that says, hey, we want to fight for better transit. Our idea is divert X amount of percentage of UDOT's budget to it. You're the policymakers, you figure it out. We could take that option as well. Just throwing that out there. Ron, you have your hand raised?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to apologize for being late to the meeting. There's no excuse. But secondly, I would like a 2% increase in the oil and gas severance tax on my cheeseburger. No,
there's
I'm just
and there-
catching up. Thank you. I'm sorry.
and there's nothing wrong with that. And again, see, Curtis, the basic problem is that some people are going to say, well, that's diverting funds from UDOT is not that's not transit.
Yeah,
It's why
and-
some people are saying why is UDOT in charge of the gondola?
Right.
Did Rone get to have a say here? I saw his hand was raised. First, I want to welcome Rone to the meeting. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you on the board and part of our group here. But I wasn't sure if you got a chance. I had to step away because
He spoke.
He spoke. Okay, I had to step away. Sorry. I've been into a chili.
I just requested a condiment for my cheeseburger. That's all.
Yeah, no, so I mean, yes, if we do this long enough, we will always have people that don't understand why we're advocating for one thing over another. So how about this? I will put together a couple of ideas, just kind of hone in on it a little bit. And we can just maybe see how it feels. And it can be I'll just do a couple mock-ups of what the petition, quote unquote, could look like. Yes, I'll sign my name to this thing. I saw Transit Imagine. I think it's awesome. I'm going to sign my name to it. And then from there, we could do a couple options. Either just, hey, I think this is awesome. I want it to happen. That can be option number one. Option number two is, I think this thing is awesome. Here's how I would say I support it. And we'd have the laundry list of whatever it is. Option three could be, I think it's awesome, and I think we do it by diverting funds from, or just reallocating funds from UDOT, and we just see how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, you could divert it from UDOT. You could divert it from the school fund. You could divert it from income taxes.
Yeah.
You could pay for it from sales tax. You could divert it from the church. I mean, you could do a whole laundry list of items. And it's any list you put on there, you're gonna find somebody who's not gonna like what's on there. And it's like the old bus versus train, right? You can go to UTA and you're gonna find enough people that love the bus, and you're gonna find enough people that love the train that you're gonna find there's bus people and train people, and they just don't always get along. And that's what you're going to find on your list.
And that's why I want to go back to just kind of the goals and outcomes, right? If our goal, and maybe that's the other part of this conversation, is I feel our goal should be to increase awareness about UTRU, increase awareness about transit and the possibilities of transit, and get more members, get more chapters, get more dues paying members, right? So if those are our goals, if those are our agreed upon goals, then the concerns about which tax we use or where it comes from, I don't know if that's as vital. I don't think it's that is as important as just making sure that we are getting a message out there that people, generally speaking, would be able to get behind. And so based off of that, I'm starting to personally fall more on the line of, we just want to make it happen. You're the policymakers, you figure it out. That is the broadest, right? That is the broadest approach. And it really could just be, I support, generally speaking, paying more in taxes to make this happen. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what it's going to look like. Or maybe we don't even include that. We just say, hey, policymakers, make this happen.
I think Curtis, it would be worthwhile to have some indication that people are willing to put their money where their mouth is.
And that's fair.
And I think that would be powerful to show that. And it's up to you. I would say use your judgment. If we're going to collect that information, we want to make sure that it's information, in some sense that we want, or that we can make actionable decisions based on, not just to collect it for the sake of it. And so that would be.
Okay, well then.
That does seem like what you've done here is there's two parts to it. One, are people willing to pay more in some way to improve transportation, public transportation in the state? And then two, in what ways, are they more or less in favor of? I think that would be,
So maybe
that's useful information.
So maybe I'll do it that way. Maybe that's it. Maybe like on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you support increasing sales tax? How much
All
do you
of the
support
above.
increase? Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we do it that way. Yeah, I really support increasing motor vehicle registration fees, so I'm going to give it a 5, but I don't support property, if you know what I mean. So maybe that's how I'll do it. Like I said, I'll kick around a couple ideas. I mostly want to get the discussion going because we do need to get moving on this, even though, yes, technically we don't have it happening officially. Well, even then, it's coming up on us relatively quick. I think I put January 16th. That's the start of legislative session. And so, yeah, I want to get moving on this. So let me put together a couple of just general ideas. It sounds like we're honing in on the idea of what we want it to actually look like. And then, yeah, I'll construct all of the stuff around that. And I'll take it from there. But it sounds like it's a general statement. I've got approval from the board to move forward with this. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, then, if that's the case, I believe what we have left on the agenda. Oh, chapter updates. We just have McKay on right now. McKay, do you want to hop on for maybe a minute or two? Tell us what there's a lot of activity going on up north. So maybe tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people, you've been forwarding me people's emails who are interested. I'm really excited about doing some grassroots, just getting people interested, having booths at fairs, doing flyers and handouts and that sort of thing just to build awareness. I also kind of had an unofficial meeting with Todd Butler, the director of CVTD, and he is awesome. I feel actually really impressed with his work, and they are super on top of things. Anything I mentioned, they're like, oh yeah, we've talked about this. They're like, yes, that's on the plan. We're working with CMPO to get that on the plan, or no, we can't do that for these reasons. Super interesting. The things that are probably relevant to a state, the statewide union that I just want to mention are that Transportation Transit Investment Fund that I didn't know existed, helped pay for some of the new buses. But the 40% local match requirement makes it hard. So CVTD wasn't submitting anything this year, and they're hoping to get on more next year. But it's great that that exists at all. That didn't exist at all a few years ago. And then there's more sales tax. So that's a political thing. Is like the Cache County can just vote to add new sales tax to go to transportation. And so on the one hand, that's easier than getting a whole ballot out there and doesn't have to be on the ballot. But we have to convince the Cache County Council, and I don't know where they stand. And then also convincing the state. And also, it looks like I said one of my things I want to do is the Brigham City Ogden bus. And Todd talked about how that's not really in the cards for CVTD in terms of they cannot justify that to their board, right? Because the ridership, they did, Brigham City did a whole study, and just the ridership would not likely exist from a local transit district ridership perspective, right? So you have to justify it as a connecting regional route that's just there to connect communities and to provide an option, which is very important, but that's more under the coverage than the ridership. And so luckily UDOT might do some things in that direction. They've been doing a inner city bus study. I don't have any details on that. I've been trying to get more details on that. If UDOT could run a service or subsidize a service, I think that might be a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
Cool.
and monkeys might fly out of my ass.
That is also true.
I mean, that would be, are the flying monkeys affordable transit? Because I mean, if it works. All right, cool. Well, appreciate the heads up, or not the heads up, just the update. And then I know I emailed you on it, but yeah, if you do have chapter meetings and things like that, just let me know. I'm happy to throw it on the website, happy to get it out there. That's one of the resources that we offer. Give me stuff to post, and I am happy to post it for you.
Yeah,
out
we're
there
trying to
for you.
find a location. I want to do it in like a public place to invite everyone. But the city hall said no, and the new library is still under construction. So when
City
that's
Hall
done, we'll
said
definitely-
no.
Yeah, they're meeting. They have one meeting room, and it's reserved for CVTD is getting kicked out too. Actually, they have to find a meeting location as well for their board.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe we'll look into that a little bit more for you too. Good to know. Have you tried the university?
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure we could use the university. I liked the idea of having separation from the UTRU students chapter.
I
And
mean,
having
it's just a meeting space, but I can get that. I understand where you're
like
coming from.
it would work. It might be a good option.
Just a thought.
I was also thinking about the transit center has a little indoor waiting area.
I mean, that's
that way
super unofficial.
it's very accessible to transit riders.
There you go. Kick it around. If you come up with something, let me know. If you need any help with anything, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. Open forum. I mean, technically we're coming close to the end, but I'm happy to keep it open for anybody. Does anybody have anything that they want to discuss just as part of the open forum?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Chris.
I have an appointment. I get to make one appointment every year of one outstanding individual to serve as a director on the board. And so if there is someone who wishes to serve on the board who has not previously voiced his or her desire to serve on the board, let Curtis know that that he or she is willing to serve on the board, and I shall appoint that person to serve on the board. It's not really a discussion, it's just more of an announcement.
Good to know. Yeah, so if you know of anybody that's interested, let us know.
It's one of my special powers that I have.
It is. It's in our bylaws.
It's a special power I have.
Yep. It's in our bylaws. I can't be it. I'm the only person in the state that can't be it, and that's about it.
And me.
But yeah. Well, and you. Well, and
I
all the
can't
other,
appoint
and all the other
myself
current board
because
members.
I'm already appointed.
And all the current board members. But other than that, Rone, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say there's two things that I'm kind of working on that have piqued my interest. One of them relates to what Chris said earlier about the workplace, the changing workplace, and the changing. It's sort of it. I guess the best way to explain it would be that I have a son who lives in Sandy, who was a regular user of the of the tracks, but who's now got a job with an Israeli company and works at home. His wife used to work at Overstock. She now works at home. So that's one element. I think I would like to collect, and many of you know that my background is as a reporter. I'd like to gather as much as I can about the different strategies that people are using around the country to address this issue of a changing workplace and how it affects the public transit. That's one element. The other element is, and also related to my son's commute. I don't commute that much. In fact, we have a new electric car and we've had it a year and I have 4,000 miles on it. So I don't even drive very much. But my son is a good litmus. He was a former college rugby player and a semi-pro rugby player, big guy. His main concern riding transit was safety and security. And that is an issue that was raised by Jay Fox in his comments at the beginning of the proposed 2024 budget. So I think it's a real issue with people who are afraid to get on the various, one of our board members who's not here, Travis, I guess, mentioned that he has troubles. He commutes from Utah County. So what I did just to sort of start the work is that I did a grandma at UTA of all of the incident reports of the UTA police There's 14,000 of them. And my son, who's a data scientist, is sort of parsing those numbers. There's some really interesting numbers, including, the most dangerous places on the routes and the most scary. And I think really it's something that's not mentioned enough when we talk about public transit, but it's this idea that you're in danger, or that if you're uncomfortable with some of the passengers who are there, and what other transit districts are doing to address this issue. Anyway, those are the two things I'm working on. One is maybe some kind of report on what other transit organizations are doing, or entities are doing, to address this issue of the changing workplace, and how we adapt to it. And I think we're going back to originally, it's sort of like generals fighting the last war. We have to sort of recognize that the terrain has changed, and serve that new terrain the way Chris mentioned. The other is the safety issue, and I think it's a much bigger issue than is ever mentioned in the kind of transit friendly environments that we encounter. There's just some places, and the other request I made of them is, because in the legislature they passed a resolution in support of the drivers of public transit that Jay Fox mentioned in his comments. But basically, the resolution talked about the number of assaults of drivers, something the union's concerned about. I've talked to them about it. So I think we need to address this in order to increase the public's confidence in public transit. So those are the two things I'm working on, using my background as a reporter. Also, I'm here for anybody who needs contacts in them, or how to approach media. I'm happy to help.
Ron, what are you going to do with those grandma requests and the results of your
share them with you.
Investigation?
I'm going to share them with you. I'm not, that even though I've been a reporter for 50 years, that when I do this kind of stuff, I'm doing it for this organization. Okay. It may be that there's something born out of it, but I want to share them with the board, including the breakdown. My son is really brilliant at this kind of stuff. So he's busy right now, but we've isolated some of the more dangerous places, and and the nature of the reports. I've also put in a grammar request to the Salt Lake City Police. I haven't done any of the suburban districts, but I think the combination of Salt Lake, because the two most problematic stops are Central and Ballpark. I'll get a lot of information from them, then I'll just share it, and we'll make a decision whether there's something we need to do. And I would like to get an idea from the writers what their concerns are about this.
Yeah, I was going to mention, we did do a safety survey here a couple months ago, but I think that was primarily for women and transgender folks, and Curtis might still have those results from that survey.
Yeah, it was women and non-binary. It was probably back, I want to say March of
Still one more.
this year.
We
We did that, but obviously your grammar requests be far wider ranging, but we do have some information. I know we discussed that a little bit when we talked.
Well, I can share the raw data with you now if you prefer that, but I mean, I will share the raw data. Then I'll share the interpretation of it.
Yeah, do your thing first, and then we can certainly talk.
Yeah, I think it's and it's fascinating. I've been doing a lot of writing, just voluntary writing around, and had some really wonderful experiences, especially on the 9. I love the 9 when it gets into West Salt Lake. So I'm learning a little bit more and having a good time doing it.
Well, all I can tell you is I won't go to Ballpark after night. I won't go to the Ballpark station after night.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I'll go to there's a pub I go to that I know people that own it, the Paxton Pub over on Paxton Avenue off of 3rd West. I usually get there on the 9, which is not so bad. It's right off of 3rd West. But if I have to take the ballpark track station, I won't go to the track station.
That's what's interesting to me because, like my son is 6 foot, 210 pounds of solid muscle, and he's afraid to get on. He's afraid when they stop at the ballpark at a certain time of night. So,
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with how big you are. I mean, I'm a small guy. I can run fast, but the problem is the tweakers can run as fast as the tweak will give them.
right.
And when you're on meth, you're pretty strong, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what size. I mean, you've seen police reports where, it takes a couple of cops to take down a guy who's tweaking.
Well, it's like the guy that was the driver who was assaulted last December, I think, who was the feature of the legislative hearing, who's an ex-Marine. I mean, these guys, they get out of control. It's true. And in fact, I think Jay Fox mentioned in his testimony to the legislature that he was concerned more about anger management than he was about mental illness. But I just think there's some things that have to be. We can't just pretend like it's a big, wonderful world out there and public transit, and you're stupid if you're not on it, because there's times, like Chris Stout would say, that you don't want to be on it. And what can we do to address that? Some other districts, I don't know, I haven't done extensive research, but like San Jose, which has started identifying and banning certain people from public transport. I don't know whether we want to think about that, but there's different solutions.
Yeah. I will share with everybody that in the 2 years that I've been talking about, rail transportation up here in the Park City and Greater Park City area, I have had people tell me that we can't have a train up here because that'll bring crime.
That is an old chestnut for sure.
Yep. Yeah. There's definitely some myths out there around all of this, and a lot of perception versus reality. But I think the myths persist, and pretending that that they're not real, and pretending that there's no issues with crime or violence on transit we need to talk about it and be comfortable talking about it. Like, one thing that I've read and seen too, discussed among various transit advocates across the United States, has been the police presence. So for certain communities, police presence is a big deterrent to being on transit. You have a history with African American communities, police abuse, etc. Right? Whereas having presence of employees, such as transit employees, such as maintenance employees, right? We have eyes on stations, and also it creates a safer atmosphere and creates someone to go to who's not the police when you feel uncomfortable. Another fact, right? So that kind of de-escalates situations, whereas police tend to escalate situations with certain communities. It's something to be mindful of. But also, the more transit's used, the safer you feel on it. And that, as a former New Yorker and Bostonian, you felt safe when there was just eyes on the street. That was what felt safe. I felt safe in Queens and all over Brooklyn. I lived over in towards Flatbush area. Bill would know these areas, right? So, they felt safe at 1 a.m. coming home from medical school rotations because people were out. Areas that are desolate do not feel safe. And when there's a lack of ridership, more stations and more areas feel desolate. And that creates this whole safety issue that makes people feel uncomfortable. So it's a bit of a chicken and an egg thing, but just some stuff to look at. And then, Rone, I'd also contextualize any information you find as well, comparing the safety of transportation, various means, and your chance of winding up in a car accident. So today I took care of a patient who was involved in a car accident. Airbag ejected, was fine, ended up having a malformation in the patient's brain, which resulted in the need for neurosurgery intervention. Just the coils to fix this, patient did okay, are $50,000. Just the coils, never mind this time in the ICU. my time and the cost of that, the time of the staff in the hospital stay. And that was from an accident the person walked away from. So there's definitely good data, and I'd look into this, comparing the safety and the chance of winding up in a car accident, riding public transportation versus driving alone, or driving a motor vehicle. It's something on the order of 60 times safer, 10 to 60 times is the numbers I've seen thrown out there for buses and trains than per mile traveled. So, just some important things to consider as you're looking into this. But I do think it is important to address the safety issue, because it is something I've heard over and over, especially from women who would otherwise take transit but don't feel comfortable at the university. And so definitely something good that we should address. And thank you.
Great. All right. Over on time, but if there's anything else anybody wants to discuss.
Yeah, all I can say
Otherwise-
is if you're alone on a subway, if you're alone on a subway heading up to 116th Street, and you're the only person on the subway with your teenage daughter, and there's some goon in the back looking at you, it's time to get off the subway.
Yeah.
Or
And I did.
What you doing uptown, white boy? Huh?
It was a cheap place to stay.
You're waiting for your man? Is that what you're up to? Yeah.
It was a cheap place to stay, 116th Street by Columbia, and I was like, all right.
Yeah.
It was cheap.
For sure.
But it was
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night, and I was the only person with my daughter on the car, and we got off at 72nd and took a cab the rest of the way.
It happens.
Oh.
It happens.
Well, you can do it
All right,
in Chicago. I was going to a White Sox game with my 5-year-old son, and where Comiskey Park was years ago, and we got off one stop too early, and we looked across the street, and people were looking at us, and we looked at them, and we started walking faster, and they started walking faster, and then it was basically a sprint from there to Comiskey Park. So things haven't changed that much. It's just that, I think, there are also some things New Yorkers can teach other people about riding public transit, which is sort of avoid eye contact if possible.
Street smarts. Yeah.
You just have to know. You have to know your area too.
Yeah. Just,
know where to go. Sorry, didn't mean to go over. Sorry, Curtis.
No, you are fine. But with
Motion
that,
adjourned.
I think, the motion is adjourned, non-debatable. All in favor say aye.
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 Everyone have a good Thanksgiving. Just by way of formality, it looks like our next meeting will be December 19th. So plan on seeing you guys then.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night.